Y'all, right now as you watch this video, there are more than 30,000 firefighters battling at least 90 uncontained fires across the United States. 30,000 people in the field. Today, not yesterday, not last week. Today, Sunday, August 9th and 10th, 2026. And because the fire that generated the most dramatic imagery, the Spokane complex, has been the dominant story in the national media, those 30,000 firefighters are largely invisible to the American public, except as a supporting fact in a story about burned neighborhoods and evacuation orders. I want to change that for the next several minutes. I want to tell you the firefighter story, what those 30,000 people are actually facing right now, what it means to be on a fire line at a national preparedness level 5, when every resource in the national system is committed and there is no reserve capacity. And I want to center the fires that they are battling hardest on, because the fires that are hardest to fight right now are not the fires that have been leading the news. The Roe Creek Complex in Central Oregon is, as of the Wildfire Explorer's August 10th update, the largest active fire in Oregon at 364,000 acres and 76% containment. That 76% containment number is genuinely hard won. The crews that have been working the Roe Creek Complex have been building containment lines across hundreds of miles of perimeter and terrain that is among the most challenging in the region. Steep juniper-covered drainages, wind-swept high desert ridgelines, remote country where the closest road is miles away from where the line needs to be. And they did that work while simultaneously dealing with the heat dome, the near-record burning index values, the extended burn periods that meant the fire never fully rested at night, and the resource competition from 51 other large fires burning across Oregon and Washington at the same time. At National Preparedness Level 5, the resource competition is not an abstract management challenge. It is the daily operational reality of every incident commander managing one of the 52 large fires currently active in Oregon and Washington. When you order resources at PL5, you're competing with every other fire in the country for the same pool of assets. Every hotshot crew, every helicopter, every air tanker, every smoke jumper, every supply chain that keeps a fire camp running, all of it is in demand from multiple fires simultaneously. And the National Coordination System has to make allocation decisions based on the overall threat picture rather than on the needs of any single fire. What that means in practice for the Roe Creek Complex crews is that the resources they have received have been carefully allocated based on competing priorities, not freely provided based on their needs. The crews that have achieved 76% containment on a 364,000 acre fire have done it with the resources the system was able to allocate to them in the context of a PL5 competition for every asset in the country. The international dimension of this firefighting effort is one that I think deserves specific emphasis, because it reflects just how stretched the American wildfire fighting system has become in the 2026 season. CNN confirmed in their August 8th coverage that firefighters from Australia and New Zealand are on the ground in the Pacific Northwest, supporting containment efforts. Australia and New Zealand maintain reciprocal wildfire assistance agreements with the United States through the International Crown Fire Modeling Experiment Framework and through bilateral arrangements that have been in place for decades. Those agreements exist precisely for situations like the current one, when the American system has fully committed its domestic resources and needs international support to manage the overall fire load. The last time the United States called on Australian and New Zealand firefighters at a similar scale was during the exceptional 2021 fire season. The fact that they are here again in 2026 tells you something specific and important about where the national firefighting resource system stands right now. I also want to make sure that the specific character of the firefighting challenge on the large remote fires is understood, because it is very different from the firefighting challenge on the Spokane complex, and it deserves its own acknowledgement. Fighting the Spokane complex is primarily a structure protection and community defense operation. Crews working the urban wildland interface, doing burnouts and building defensive perimeters around structures and neighborhoods, coordinating with law enforcement on evacuations and access control. It is critical, life-saving work, but the primary tactical objective on an interface fire is to keep the fire away from human structures and protect life safety. Fighting the Roe Creek complex is a different kind of operation. At 364,000 acres in remote high desert terrain, the primary tactical challenge is perimeter management across hundreds of miles of fire edge in conditions that make direct attack extremely difficult or impossible. Crews are building indirect containment lines that are positioned not at the fire's current edge, but at features in the terrain or the vegetation that the fire is expected to reach, designed to catch and hold the fire when it arrives at those features. That work is done in heat, in smoke, with limited water supply because the remote terrain has no municipal water infrastructure, with the constant challenge of wind shifts that can overturn hours of line work in minutes. The Oregon Department of Forestry and the USDA Forest Service crews working the Roe Creek complex are doing some of the hardest physical and logistical work that wildfire fighting demands, in some of the most remote and inhospitable terrain in the Pacific Northwest. And they are doing it with the resources the PL5 National Allocation System was able to give them in competition with 51 other large fires. The Coleman Creek Fire, 212,000 acres, 0% containment, burning in Harney County, represents a different and more urgent tactical situation. 0% containment on a fire of this scale means the perimeter has not been secured at any point. Crews are managing the fire's behavior and protecting specific values at risk, ranches, roads, infrastructure, but have not been able to establish a continuous containment line that holds the fire's spread. 0% containment on a fire that has already burned 212,000 acres means that the fire is still doing what the weather and the terrain tell it to do, and the firefighting effort is focused on influence rather than containment. That is an extraordinarily difficult position to be in, and the crews managing the Coleman Creek situation are doing it with the same resource constraints and the same PL5 competition pressures as every other fire in the system. And then there is the August 9th data that I want to make sure drives home the scale of what these crews are dealing with. Fox 12. Oregon reported that 150,000 acres burned across Oregon and Washington on August 9th alone, in a single day. That is more acreage than the entire Spokane complex has burned in its entire duration, burning in a single 24-hour period across the active fires in the Pacific Northwest. And it was double the rate from the Friday before, meaning the fire behavior was accelerating, not decelerating. 30,000 firefighters were in the field when 150,000 acres burned in a day. The math tells you something immediate about what it means to be a firefighter on one of these remote Oregon or Washington fires right now. The fire is growing faster than it is being contained. That is not a failure of the people fighting it. It is the outcome of weather conditions, the heat dome, the near-record burning index values, the extended burn periods, that put fire behavior outside the range, where direct containment is achievable on a single day. What the firefighters in the Pacific Northwest need most right now is not simply more resources, though more resources would help. They need the weather to change. They need a sustained period of cooler temperatures and higher humidity that allows the fuels to moderate from their current historically extreme dryness. They need the overnight temperatures to drop enough to allow genuine overnight moderation of fire behavior. They need the wind events that have been driving the most explosive fire runs, the 35 to 45 mile per hour gusts that pushed the Spokane complex across the river and into Indian Trail, the sustained winds that have been fanning the Roe Creek complex perimeter to subside long enough for crews to make meaningful containment progress. Some of that weather relief may be coming in the 10 to 14 day forecast window as the pattern shifts, but the August 9th data, showing 150,000 additional acres in a day, suggests that the relief has not arrived yet. I want to close with something personal because I think it is the most honest way to end a script that is specifically about the people who are fighting these fires. The 30,000 firefighters who are in the field today are not all in Spokane where the cameras are. They are spread across 90 uncontained fires in multiple states, many of them in terrain so remote that the nearest person not on the fire assignment may be 50 miles away. They are working 12 to 16-hour operational periods in heat that the NWS is calling near or record burning index conditions. They are eating camp food and sleeping in spike camps and managing the exhaustion of weeks of sustained deployment while the National Resource System is at its maximum commitment and no relief resources are waiting to swap them out. They are doing this because it is the work and because the communities and the landscapes behind them deserve the best effort those 30,000 people can give. This video is for them. And it is for the communities in Spokane and in Malheur County and in Harney County and in Wheeler County and on the Colville Reservation and in every corner of the Pacific Northwest that is burning right now, that they are protecting. All of those communities deserve our attention. All of those firefighters deserve our respect. And all of those fires deserve to be named and known. Share this. Speak the names of the fires that are not being covered. And as always, stay safe out there. I love y'all.